Hello, my friends. This is Lori with Tug of Heart. I'm here today with my beloved Stephen John. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Bella.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
For those of you that don't know, Steve refers to me as Bella. So, Leroy is out in the mysterious world of real estate today. So, Steve decided to join me. Today, Steve, I wanted to actually talk about a thing that I'm part of a group on Facebook. It's called the Women's Oneness Project with Maddie Cheers. You know, Maddie, you've heard her, and I think you've read a lot of her work. And she does every Sunday a piece called Prayers and Poetry, and she kind of gives a theme, and people can submit thoughts, poems, or prayers, and she reads from different places, different types of theology, philosophy, psychology, or her own works. And this last week, she had done one on Hearts United, and it just really stuck. I think you had read the pieces that I submitted for it.
Yes, I did, yeah.
And it's such a relevant topic, and I felt like it came in at just the right time for today's conversation, because we just actually, Leroy was here solo because I was out of town, and we've reached our 100th episode. Today is 101.
Oh, congratulations.
So one of my thoughts was, well, what do we talk about? Like, how do you, if you want to be collegiate about it, Hearts 101. What would you cover? Where do you go with something like that? And I was thinking, it'd be Hearts United. I think if you had to say, how do we generalize? How do we give a broad overview of the heart to see if it's something people would want to do? Like, how would you teach a 101 class? You could not get through it without covering connection, relation,
yes,
the self, and unity at some point. And Maddie had shared a lot of beautiful things. I will put a link when I post this for anybody that wants to hear hers. But so today, I think this will actually turn into two parts, because there's so much to say. You can't, and we'll just barely scratch the surface, I imagine. Talking about what it means to be Hearts United, or united in heart. Everybody, the world, your community, your family, me and you.
Right.
One person, where you start. You're coming into this kind of cold, which that's fine. You didn't expect to be here until I twisted your arm on the way, which was a good show of unity, and I appreciate that. I hope your arm's better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. So in unity, one of the things I was thinking, and I'm going to just turn it over to you as soon as I try to articulate this point, is that in considering unity, I think across the board, people agree it's something they need. We say it's something we want. And that's all fine and dandy. And then we quickly get tripped up when it's like, how do we go about it?
Right.
And a lot of times it's that, have we taken a look at unity itself first to say, what do we mean by that? And in what sense do we want it? So, for instance, Steve, if we say, why can't we all just be united? What do I mean by that? Do I mean, why can't we be remove violence from man's heart? Why can't we get along? Why can't I be comfortable going wherever I like, anytime I like? And why can't other people always feel comfortable or welcome in my vicinity or around me? Now, that is in the realm of unity, but it's also talking about kind of unity becomes secondary, because what I'm saying is, this is uncomfortable, I want to remove discomfort, but I'm not saying I'm seeking unity in and of itself. So to begin with, what are your thoughts on that? Like, how could I better express, or how would you express what it means to even be united in heart, in terms of just isolating the unity for now?
Right. I think it's an excellent question and thought process. Most times we see that unity is attractive because we see the effects of being one. We see harmony, peace, a sense of strength, which are the effects of unity. But what does unity mean by itself? It's a very good question. I start off by thinking about being united to yourself first.
Right.
We have a mind, body, spirit, and soul connection that is always there since we were created as human beings, and it's a struggle. It's said that the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So, as human beings, we probably experience that all the time. But once that struggle is worked through, and it's a struggle, then we are at least, we can call ourselves integrated, or being whole, or being one within ourselves. And from that sense of self, I would call that a state of grace, where what is seen to the outside world is then the effect or manifestation of being whole within yourself. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's a process. We probably will never reach the perfection of that process while we are alive. Something will give, either the mind or the body or the soul. And while it's a work in progress, I think that should be our primary motivation or driving force to be an integrated person. And then from that sense of unity within ourselves, with a peace within ourselves, that we can then reach out with an open heart to another person or another entity, whether that be just another person or members in a family or in society or at work or play. I think it starts in the personhood first. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with the direction that takes, but I'm finding just a little piece lacking, which I'm assuming that you weren't finished, but maybe you can help me with this part. I think that's right, that as an ideal, I would enter into some type of communion with others, mm-hmm. or integrating with others, relation. Let's just say relation, mm-hmm. okay, for simplicity. Ideally, that would be an integrated person, a well-adjusted person, balanced. A whole person, correct, is the best to relate to another. But, my beloved, what about in the meantime? I can't wait to be whole until to meet and interact. And part of my wholeness, in fact, comes from relations. Yeah. So, what do you think about like the in between and being able to do it together? Is it just simply by agreement? How do we hold to this idea that we understand there should be unity? Something in our heart naturally speaks to relationship and to wanting unification with others. There is something about unifying with others that better pronounces what that something within me that you referred to as the personhood is. I find a lot of what I have learned about myself and my personhood has come from interaction with others. Mm-hmm. That's where I have learned it. So how do we balance that? It quickly gets tangled and frustrating, and we fall short quick.
Exactly.
And it also speaks. I'm sorry. One more thought, and it can be a stumbling block, I think, because a lot of times people, in general, let me say we, mm-hmm. because it's not just people, but man, can have this tendency to say that people on whole need not attempt to join. we reject.
Well said. Yes.
So where do we go? How do we begin this?
In the process of being united or integrated to yourself, I think one of the first question is why should we be? Why should the process even be? The answer is the process already is happening, whether we want it or not. It's the nature of human beings, and the result of that is happiness, and everybody wants to be happy. Their routes for being happy may be different, but it is always born of a struggle. Now, when a person has some integrity, they are bound to be happy, and that happiness almost cannot be self-contained. It has to be expressed, and it has to be communicated, because the more the merrier. But in a deeper sense, we all want to be happy. We want others to be happy. Having said that, the world offers so many shortcuts which bypasses the struggle and gives a sense of happiness which is sometimes false, and it serves to assuage the pains from that struggle while it is happening. Mm-hmm. And like you said, you cannot achieve perfection before you reach out. The reaching out is already happening, and it's in relationship that we know more about ourselves while we learn about the other. Let me go further in this. Let's see two entities. Let's imagine two entities, whether it's two persons or between one person and members in the family, just two entities. For the outside world, let's say they're all together. They look good, happy, not knowing the struggles within that make that happy picture. I just wanted to differentiate what is visible to the outside world between what I call as between bonding and bondage.
Right.
A bond is tight; it keeps everything together. So does bondage from an outside appearance. They're both tight. They both present a single front. But in bondage, the struggle is always it's forced, and it is not innate or natural. And in that bondage, there's is something that's waiting to give, and it is not productive of happiness ultimately. The togetherness that is seen in bonding, however, is more productive of happiness. This is why I feel that the sense of unity should come from within the heart, with an open heart, to reach out to the other with a common goal of happiness, ultimate happiness. And by happiness, I mean that which is the result of being in grace, true happiness. The expression of a grace-filled smile is way different from that which is forced. The latter is almost a caricature of the former. The smile that comes from a truly peaceful heart is so different, as we've seen in the face of Mother Teresa, for example. The tension that exists is either in bond or bondage. There has to be tension, and there will be pain, because love does hurt. And I'm talking about love when you open your heart to the other person or the other entity. You're making yourself so totally vulnerable by that act of opening yourself, opening your heart, your very being, for conversation, for a relationship to form. And because it is so tender and you're making yourself so vulnerable, negativity in the form of name calling or brushing aside because the other person might think differently is not conducive to a good relationship. Both entities might walk away feeling hurt, and it does not foster unity. If you're committed in a relationship, then that name calling or blame, when you're more open, the miracle is that you might be saying the same thing, but it's almost like the yin and yang of that conversation. It's just the complementarity, the other person seeing happiness as the ultimate goal for self and the other. And it's still a struggle, it's still painful, but through that pain comes real joy, real serenity, and peace that you want to share in an ever-expanding embrace, I would say, of others.
And in that same line of thinking, when you say ever-expanding embrace, the reason, it's funny that you say expanding embrace, because it's an embrace that's tightening. So
correct.
The bonds are tighter
Tighten.
in a way that you don't so much mind, versus bondage, because the tighter bondage becomes, the more suffocating. It's death.
Yes.
To be in bondage versus to be bound is life-giving.
Yes.
So, and this is not yin and yang. It's like truly only the living can love one another.
Absolutely.
So don't snuff each other out. That's why, arguably, that's the ultimate, just betrayal of unity, is to end somebody's life or to silence somebody is a kind of asking that they just be removed from anywhere around you. That is calling for their death, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Because because what do we mean when we say they're no good? We want them gone, totally
Right.
gone.
Yeah.
A living death,
Yeah.
as good as dead. We want you to act as if dead for our peace. This will not do. But as you say, a growing embrace, that comes from knowing that is also in growth. That's the only thing that I see has changed. Like, you and I have quite a long history together. The one thing that I can say has consistently changed is our level of knowing of one another, right?
Yes.
If you want to start with two people,
Right.
what's different today from 20 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
I know more. But because there was at some point this commitment to remain united, that was not a requirement of it, wasn't, and all the unknown better be all right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or I snuff you out,
Mhm.
or ask for
Yeah.
your silence. Not that I haven't asked for your silence or non-silence, if you want, but it's knowing more. Under those conditions, it's like I know more, but I experienced as much joy from the beginning as I have today, because there was that freedom to give space to learn more without there's this kind of understood promise, or you would say a covenant, but there is this understanding that I'm not talking about just disclosure.
Right.
Okay, there's a disclosure, but I mean knowing, in action, indeed.
Right.
Not what I declare of me. I call it wrong about myself all the time. But what you see of me actually lived out in day-to-day life, for me to be able to do that, it could take 99 days of just near disaster. And a real safe feeling of being able to do that, to come up with one day that it lands right. And I'm not saying that's like our percentage, but I'm saying the one day can be so worth it. So then you go another 98 for 2. And that's where you start to have this kind of knowing displacing fears. But if you want to break it into numbers or whatever, and that it's like, but still there was always that 100 in there, right? 99 messy, 1 brilliant, just brilliant. But you kept the 100. You
Right.
still counted it 100.
Right.
And it takes that kind of agreement that that is our whole as that inside is expressed.
Yes. When we're talking about hearts united, I started by saying that unity is attractive, even objectively speaking. Just to the outside world. But that unity between two hearts comes after a lot of struggle, a lot of pain. We make yourself vulnerable to each other, and you go beyond loving another person or another entity, not because of, but sometimes in spite of. And that process is painful. But it is also very powerful. I mean, if you even take just the human example, 1 + 1 ceases to be 2, it just becomes 1. And in that communication of that love between man and woman, a child is born. It's that powerful. Another one is created to be part of the bigger one now.
And there's
It's a
no
family.
denying that there's that 100 that exists in
There you go.
the perfect expression is 100, and it as DNA would have it 50-50.
50-50.
Which is, and now not talking about good and bad, but just a pure expression of each.
That's
equal.
right. Yeah.
That is actually a mystery of sorts. And that's another thing. There is a mystery to the heart. And
Yes.
there is a mystery to unity. Are they the same mystery, or are they two things? Not to be so far out there,
Right.
but I'm just thinking, like, are they each their own entity? Are they different? Is Hearts United a heart, ultimately? It's a body, at least we know.
Right. Between two persons, once the hearts are united and becomes one, it doesn't matter the rest of it, even the physicality of distance or time even, because the heart's never separate. And I was just thinking, like, even, driving here, I goofed up at a traffic stop. And, edged a little closer where my face would have appeared on...
6 feet.
a little bit. My face would have appeared on a traffic ticket or something. But a truck pulled next to me. He went a little further even. I didn't say anything, but...
and I wasn't looking.
Yeah, but Bella could just sense first my doom and then my relief. And I had not moved a muscle, but she could feel it. and it was so amazing because, like, we just know each other so well. And, like, words, I didn't say, oops, what did I do? Nothing, And
so
she
let me
just
just, I'll
knows
just
me.
say, Steve goes past the line, generously past the line we should have stopped. So we're sitting in front of the stoplight, right? And I'm just looking forward to doing my casual best to not add to any feelings that might be in the car. And then I peripherally can see a truck pull up next to him, and I could just feel this kind of lightness in the car all of a sudden. And so I just quietly say, my baby's so relieved that truck came up and made him feel like a man again instead of a child in trouble. Okay, it might be hard to hear from the outside,
Right.
but I think the point you're making is that at some point like people say, as a cliche, we can finish each other's sentences. There are things that can happen, and this is actually this speaks of the beauty of a unified heart. There are times when it's not even finishing. We don't even need that. We don't even need a starter, and so what's increased is our predictability of what the other will say out of repetition. But there's just a knowing in the heart that's something more, and that's a knowing.
Yes,
Right? Not a
yes.
finishing of a sentence, but a knowing,
knowing, yeah.
knowing this would make him nervous, this would not. I can remember one time you and I were in a tense meeting, and words were getting stronger, to put it mildly. And somebody had said to us, like, your innuendos, suggesting we were saying little tidbits to one another as like a kind of private talk, like like we were trying to talk past them and in code to one another. And when we left the meeting, you kind of chuckled, and they said, "What's so funny?" And you're like, "Innuendo." If we wanted, it was subtleties. Your subtleties.
Subtlety.
I see your subtleties, and you chuckled, and I'm like, "What happened?" He's like, "You said, why did they want to see subtle? I'd have just read your mind if I didn't want anybody to know." Okay, we're off track, But do you hear this, like when you and I kind of laugh at one another saying these things? There's such a pureness in it.
It is.
I love you so much, but my God, have we not also earned that?
Yeah.
So tell me about
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
so we can get back on topic. It
Right,
is
yeah.
it is that kind of earned through friction.
It is earned through friction.
Did you-
Actually, yeah. Friction generates heat, which kind of melts the hearts and makes it one. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, and even if you look in, your basic chemistry,
Right?
and how things are bound, and which is funny because you would think people with age in relationship, whether it's two souls, twin souls, or a community, you kind of get this image, because one of the things I was thinking of when I was thinking Hearts United, we trip up a lot because we're arguing about what it ought to look like.
Mm-hmm.
But when has Earth yet reached that we have a really good point of reference? We have not.
We have not.
But still, there will be somebody kind of, making the square with their hands as if they're looking through the lens, how the portrait's going to land. They're like, I don't like how this looks.
Right.
And so they call it not good unity, because it can be quite messy. Now, back to the chemistry thing. So people have this idea that as we get closer, more unified, that they're like things like I used to picture, and I kind of still do out of habit, this idea that as couples get older and more settled in, like there's kind of a stilling that's happening between the
Right,
couple.
right.
Like they've slowed, or there's like less movement.
Right.
And this is what keeps them well bound. And I'm talking about it like if you would picture whatever anybody listening imagines as an ideal, or a community that's really tight. You picture it like it's just a well-oiled machine that nobody's getting in anybody's way, or they're moving slow enough where there's less collision. But in fact, back to chemistry, okay?
Right.
Things are moving faster the tighter the bond, because something has given it a stronger hold to have more movement, which is freedom.
Wow, that's true.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Say it again in a different way so I can hear myself back. No, but do you see what I'm saying? It's actually freeing the tighter and tighter and tighter it becomes. And it becomes more like the sun burning itself, and that core is tighter. The tighter it gets, what remains of it can burn longer.
Mm-hmm.
How can this be?
And that's probably the difference between bond and bondage, where the link between the two entities, because the other one is forced in bondage, it gets weaker, like bringing
The bonds loosen
loosen. Yeah,
versus something innate, the draw strengthening.
right. I mean, I just pictured like the north and south pole of a magnet. They stick together. And then what happens? The iron filings come in together, and they get magnetized. And like there are metaphors in nature all the time if you look for it, and the oneness that maybe a monk experiences being one with nature, or even when you're out on a trek and you feel even the tides moving with your heart's beat, and you experience a communion that's alive with something not living. This is what I feel that we're called to reach out with integrity, to reach out, to communicate, and then embrace more and more, because love itself has no limit. Love has no boundaries.
Right. And I think it's one thing to have, kind of begun by naming all these things, and it's another to actually live it out.
Yeah.
Because if I sat here with you day one today, I might say this, and it's one thing to have a picture in my head, because just even having this particular talk inspires a type of vision.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that we're neglecting to say is the living it out. Whatever people are picturing, this pretty picture you're painting, the electrons and whatever
Right.
else right now, they go wonky also.
Sure.
Bonds are broken.
Sure.
And a lot can go wrong. And there can be outside forces that come into play in terms of being bound. I was thinking when you mentioned monks, and I was thinking like the mystics, monks, people who have dedicated their life or have found for them their contribution to humanity being united was to intentionally be set apart from the distractions of the day-to-day hustle and bustle of humanity, to isolate in a way that is painful in and of itself.
Right.
So this is not, there's kind of a trend where the idea of mysticism is very romanticized. Never mind, no, really, their lips are split wide open in that desert. And they are hungry, and some don't make it back from that mountain.
Yes.
It's beautiful, but a lot don't make it back. But so when you were saying monk, I was thinking unity, that's part of the mystery too. But the point is that to remove themselves from any forces that could impede their unity or their calling, their contribution to unification, they have to choose a very, very quiet and lonely life, because they are, people, it's not like they're just there getting all of this awe and wonder for the feeling that infuses through them. They're actually suffering quite a lot to spend most of their days praying and contemplating for us to get it right.
And
it is a suffering. So it's not, because the people, it sounds romantic when you're like, look, of course, this brilliance is a byproduct, but that wasn't their initial aim. And it comes back to aim, right?
Yes. And wow, that was beautiful where you took this. But
thank you.
It is powerful. It is so powerful that in isolation, the monk breathes love into creation, and it is suddenly real, whether through prayer or just the breathing out of the love that he feels in a sigh, maybe sometimes in his dying breath, but that is so powerful. I can't make the connection how that happens, where humanity itself is somehow better.
Absolutely.
And that's the mystery behind it, isn't it?
But it's all, and it is the beauty to know that even somebody had this integrity, which means complete wholeness within themselves to be able to see the very painful truth that I am actually called to do what we pray every day no community would do to anybody. But I'm doing it on my own and to myself.
Wow. Yeah.
Is it, if it wasn't him doing it, it would be a death sentence or suicide. But he's voluntarily doing it for the good of others. And who knows, I don't know that it hasn't happened to me on a day that I'm feeling a weight, and you come across somebody and, you feel like you could just squash the next, 2-3 people that cross you, but instead you see somebody just doing something so goofy that normally you just like you were in that kind of squashing mood, and they probably should have fallen prey to that.
Right.
But you just see it as playful and so odd, and maybe somebody sighed in the desert and carried that weight so you could act right in that moment. Don't look at me, we're going to get emotional. But this is the truth and the beauty of that type of love. And it's a massive contribution to unity. I want to kind of I'm going to kind of wrap up this segment, but we will continue from here if you can remember this, because my memory is so bad. But the idea that unity comes from sacrifice. A lot of what we covered sounds kind of like the poem that I had actually submitted to Maddie. It's kind of funny, but this is.
I wish you would read it.
Actually, this is part of the joy of it is we think alike, and it's not by coercion.
No,
I don't think like you out of any bondage. I don't think like you. It's truly with our own clear slate what we have come to recognize together. That's where my book starts in life, is with only what I have forged with you. And by the grace of people that have prayed for us or don't know us and just prayed for, I know there's some damn fool in the world, I'm praying for them today.
And here we are.
And that is it. And so there is a certain cost. So from here we will press forward with the next talk about what that means for there to be a cost and how we meet it when we feel it, and how we differentiate the cost of good versus just the consequence of something's gone terribly wrong in this unification.
Right.
That's kind of hard, but if you remember, we'll open like that.
Okay.
Thank you for coming. It was really nice. I would have had to stutter all by myself for, like 40 minutes here.
Thank you, Bella.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Also, thank you to Strong Island and to our producer here, Bobby.
Thanks, Bobby.
Until next time, you guys. And shout out to Leroy. Miss you. Love you. Say hi to Leroy.
Hi, Leroy.
Thank you so much. You can like and share, as I said, and we will continue next time with Hearts United. Until then, farewell.
Farewell.